Hey everybody, welcome to Brian's Vinyl Records, a special Record Store Day edition. That's right, Record Store Day is now in the past, it's behind us. And I hope that you got out and had a lot of fun on your Record Store Day because I know I did. So today I'm just going to do a quick video to show you all the treasures that I got this Record Store Day. So stick around and enjoy. Alright guys, I had a blast at Record Store Day this year. I hit 2 record stores in the Minnesota Twin Cities area. My first always is Mill City Sound in Hopkins, so big shout out to them. They gave me this fine t-shirt here that I'm rocking for this video, and they also run a great Record Store Day. I got there at 6 a.m. in the morning and I was in line. The weather was about 25 degrees outside, cold, miserable, but we didn't care. We sat there for 3 hours in the cold and had a blast just talking about music, records, and all sorts of fun things. So I mean, that's what Record Store Day to me is all about. I know there's a lot of people who don't like the lines and prefer to stay at home and wait, and that's great. My big thing is I love to support my local record stores, and you know, this year and last Black Friday were 2 record store days that actually had a lot of things that I wanted. So I was really excited. In previous years, I haven't seen a whole lot that I was really interested in, but this year I saw quite a bit and I had to really look at the list and narrow it down. But I picked up 9 awesome titles that I'm going to go through here, and I hope that you will enjoy this. So let's get started. The first album I want to talk about is from our own Minnesota boy, Bob Dylan. That's right, Bob Dylan put out Blood on the Tracks at Test Pressing. And what this is a replication of the original test press that was sent out after Bob Dylan cut the Blood on the Tracks album. The fun part is it's different on, I believe, 4 or 5 of the tracks, because after the test press was made and sent out, he then went back into his studio in Minnesota and redid those tracks. So on here are several tracks that are different than what appear on the actual album that was released back in 1974. So it's kind of cool, and they decided to go ahead and release this sweet test press to everybody on black vinyl, looking like the test press did, and everything else. Nothing fancy cover wise, just a nice label like they would on the test presses, the white label of course for the test pressing, and everything else. This sounds awesome. So if you're a Bob Dylan fan, and if you love the album Blood on the Tracks, I think you should pick this up, because I think it's kind of cool to hear kind of alternate versions of those handful of songs. And it's just a real neat thing to have. So this is Bob Dylan's test press of Blood on the Tracks. I love it. Glad I picked this up, and very reasonable price as well. So no ripoff on this one. Great stuff. The next album I want to talk about is from a nice band that a lot of people have mixed feelings on. And I get it, a lot of people are upset because they sound a lot like another band that is rock and roll kings, right? We're talking about Led Zeppelin, and this is Greta Van Fleet. Well, I don't care if they sound a lot like Led Zeppelin, because I think that's cool. Some of my favorite bands sound like my favorite band, AC/DC. I'm talking about Rhino Bucket, a great band that sounds exactly like Bon Scott era AC/DC, and I love it. So why wouldn't I not like, if I'm a Led Zeppelin fan, a new, young, up-and-coming band who sounds and, you know, writes music like Led Zeppelin did? I think it's fantastic. And this is an awesome album. They released a vinyl record EP that had a few of the songs that are on this out, and I held off on buying it for the longest time, and I'm glad I did, because now I have the full LP from the Fires, and it is really good. It sounds amazing. The album is great. I now have the 2 full albums that they've put out, and I'm a fan, man. These guys really know how to bring it. I love it. This one is of course pressed on standard black vinyl, and it sounds amazing. Recommended, and only $17 at that, so a good price as well. The next album I picked up, I was going back and forth on whether or not I should get this, and the reason isn't because I don't like the artist, because I love the artist a lot. The reason is it was a live album full of cover tunes and one song that's her own, and I was kind of going back and forth thinking, I'm not sure I really want a covers album, live album from one of my favorite artists. But in the end, the price of only $18 sold me on it, and I'm talking about LeAnn Rimes live from, I believe it's Groon Hall. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, but I'm glad I kind of picked this up. It's an interesting one. It's on clear vinyl, which I think has issues when they do it. It has a little bit of noise in here from time to time on the album, but overall, I'm satisfied with the song selection she did. The band and her did a great job recording the songs, and I find myself enjoying it more than I thought I would. Of course, some of the great songs on here, Pride and Joy, not a song that you think LeAnn Rimes would cover very much, Stevie Ray Vaughan, but she does a good job on that. The other one I really thought was good is her cover of Always on My Mind, which is a song that I've loved since I first heard, believe it or not, Elvis do this when I was a kid. I bought an Elvis cassette that had him singing Always on My Mind on it. I loved it. Never knew it was really a Willie Nelson tune until a lot later, but I love Elvis's version, and I think she does a really good job on here. She also pays tribute to Merle Haggard on here, and a couple other really good artists as well. A great album. Glad I picked it up. Worth it. The next album I want to talk about is a pair of albums that came out from Weezer. I've been getting a lot into Weezer lately. This is a band that I never really paid much attention to beyond the Blue album, and I've heard people talk over and over about how great Weezer is, and finally after the Pacific Daydream came out and my kids fell in love with the one song that was a big hit on there, Feels Like Summer, I started to kind of get into it, and I started collecting their color albums, and I'm glad I did. I've gotten into them a lot. So the first one I want to talk about is this kind of rarities piece. It's called Dusty Gems and Raw Nuggets. It has a bunch of B-sides from the Blue album era and some live tracks as well as acoustic tracks and bare tracks. It's really fun to listen to. I liked it a lot, and the cool part is these are all getting general releases here, but this one comes on a cool marbled blue vinyl, which I think is sweet. So very cool. Didn't cost too much. I think this one was $25 if I'm not mistaken, so not a bad price for a little rare Weezer. So cool there. The other one, of course, is the long-awaited covers album from Weezer. Came out on streaming services as well as CD, I think last month, and then they're finally going to release it on LP in May widely, but they released a special version on Record Store Day here, and the special version contains the teal vinyl. Very cool little touch, and the wife and I listened to this today and we loved it. Great job. Awesome song selections on here, and just a fun listen. Next on my list is a band that I got into in the 90s because of two songs, Rome and Love Shack. Well, they're a different type of band, not something that I normally listen to, but I get a kick out of their songs. I recently picked up another one of their albums, and so I thought, why not? This was an EP that they released back in 1982, and it only cost $15, so I said, what the heck, I'm going to pick it up. The B-52s, Mesopotamia. I like it a lot. So funny. When I was listening to this, my oldest came out and said, what are you listening to? It's so weird. And I said, yeah, that's the B-52s, and they do some interesting stuff, but I like it. It's good, fun album, especially if you're a B-52s fan. All right, next up is one that was high on my get list. This is a soundtrack that after rewatching this video, I didn't realize all the great songs that were on this soundtrack before. But when I was doing a movie review podcast, we covered this as one of our extras, and the opening scene has one of my favorite Typo Negative songs in it, Summer Breeze, and I had to then go out and find this. When I saw this was on the list, I had to pick it up. This is I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is by far the most expensive album that I picked up this weekend for Record Store Day. This one cost me $39. A little more than I like to spend on an album, but I had to have this soundtrack because it's just full of awesome artists. Typo Negative, you got The Offspring, you've got Soul Asylum, you've got L7, Toad the Wet Sprocket, and just many more. A great album, and the pressing sounds awesome. And this one comes in a really cool red vinyl. So very neat, good touch. And I should mention too that the Mesopotamia comes in a blue marbled vinyl from B-52s. This one is the #1 album on my desired list, and the first album I grabbed out of the pile the moment I could, and that is the Crow motion picture soundtrack. I love this movie. I love this movie, and the soundtrack is killer, and this pressing is amazing. It comes in 2 colored vinyls. The first one is white, and the second one is a black vinyl, but it has a really cool etching on the opposite side of the Crow. So I don't know how good you can get this on the camera, but it's a really cool etching of the Crow on here. So just an awesome get. Great sounding soundtrack, and from what I hear, this one sold out super fast. So I was lucky. I was about 25 people in line, and I got one of the last copies that were available at the store. So people were taking that off the shelves. In fact, the second store that I went to were all sold out by the time I got there. Last but not least is a pickup that I did today, the day after Record Store Day. I'm recording this on Sunday after Record Store Day, and I went back because I had a fellow vinyl enthusiast who missed out on the Weezer Teal album, so I told him I'd look for him, and I decided to go today back and check it out, and I'm glad I did, because I picked up this gem. This is John Lennon, Imagine, the raw studio mixes. Imagine is probably John Lennon's biggest album, and this is cool. If you've heard the album, it's a great album and it sounds pretty good, but this raw studio mixes version is so cool, and I like it even better than the version that came out originally, because you can hear everything. There's nothing, cut out. George Harrison's slide guitar on 3 songs is just out front, and it's beautiful, and I really enjoyed listening to this. The quality of the press is fantastic, so I highly recommend this. I think this is getting a wide release later this year as well. So if you didn't get it for Record Store Day, now's your chance. Go out and get that, because it's just phenomenal. So this was a last second purchase on day 2 of Record Store Day, where you can go and see what's left over at your local record stores. Quite a bit actually was left over, and this is the one I came home with. So awesome there. All right, there's one other thing I want to show you before we wrap up this video on Record Store Day purchase, and that is not a Record Store Day purchase, but something that I found while perusing the bins waiting for the person I was out with, and that is this really cool Stone Temple Pilots Unplugged LP. Now this is an unofficial release from DOL, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. There's only one thing I don't like about it, and there's not much I can do about that, but that's that they put a space of silence between each track. So you'll be hearing them talking or the crowd clapping, and then you'll have like a second and a half of silence, and then the crowd will be back in the same spot as they go through the show, and that's every song. The other thing I don't really care for is that they added a 1994 live version of Vaseline to the end of side 1, which to me makes 0 sense. If you're going to add that, it would make more sense to put it at the end of side 2, because it's completely different from the acoustic feel that they're doing on the rest of the album. And the weird part is that it plush ends side 1 other than the Vaseline piece, and when they pick up on Wicked Garden for side 2, you pick up right where plush ended. So it seems kind of odd to put that where they put it, probably due to constraints on sides and time, but just an odd thing to do. However, it sounds great. It was pressed on 180 gram virgin vinyl, and it's really cool. And this one, of course, comes on standard black issue. But I've never seen this in a store, so when I saw this, I had to grab it. So this is my cool purchase, non-Record Store Day of the week. So there you have it. That is my Record Store Day. It was absolutely a fun time, a blast. The 2 stores I went to, Mill City Sound, where I got this awesome t-shirt, and Hopkins was the first stop, and then of course Down in the Valley in Golden Valley, who are a top-notch organization and a great record store. Those guys are phenomenal, so I want to give a shout out to them as well. They did a great job with how they manage the crowd and everything else. I stood outside in line for a grand total of about 4.5 hours in 25 to 30 degree weather. But the whole time I was talking with other people, having good conversations, talking about music. It didn't feel like 4.5 hours, but it was fun and I enjoyed it, and I dressed for the weather, so I was good there and good to go. So I want to hear about you. How was your record store day? Did you go? And if you did you get everything you wanted to? I will say I missed out on 2 things, or 3 things really, that I kind of wanted. One was on my list, which was the Kip Moore album that came out, the Acoustic Sessions album, Room to Spare. I missed out on that. I'm hoping I can maybe pick it up sometime somewhere else. We'll see. It sounds like it's an exclusive to Record Store Day and not a album that's going to be reissued out, which would be a real bummer, but such is life. The other 2 that I looked at while I was there are the Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East. I thought that looked really cool, but that sold real quick, and both record stores I went to didn't have many copies. And the last one would be the Stax Does the Beatles. I thought about that one as well, but it eluded me. I think the only 2 copies that were at my record store were taken almost immediately, and I missed out on that. But that sounded like a really cool thing to do and hear. So unfortunately, I missed out on those 2 pieces. Actually, those 3 pieces that I would have liked to have added to. But that's probably a good thing because I went a little bit over my budget this year on what I purchased. All right, guys, that's it for my record store day. Tell me about your record store day. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what did you get? What did you miss out on? What are you still trying to find? How was your experience? Did you enjoy standing in line? Did you stand in line? Did you go later in the day? What time did you have to be there to get in line if you were in line? I said I was in line at 6 o'clock. I know there were people in line at 4 a.m., some at 3 a.m., and there was even 2 people who were in line at one of the record stores downtown at 7:30 a.m. Friday morning. So they stood out there for over 24 hours in a snowstorm in the cold. Crazy, if you ask me. So tell me, how about your record store day experience? I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, friends, keep spinning.